In this video, I'm gonna show you exactly how to sell on Amazon step by step. This isn't a video of me just talking about the process. Instead, you're gonna see over my shoulder as I show you all the steps that you need to take. I'm gonna be sharing a lot of information in this video, probably more than you can take in one sitting. So make sure to bookmark this video so that you can refer back to it again and again. The trouble with YouTube is that you often have to piece together lots of different videos to get all of your information. So instead, I wanted to give you one place to go to. To make this easier, each section is bookmarked in the description below, so as you come back to the video, you can jump straight into the section that you need. I've created this video twice before, totaling over 1.5 million views, with comments such as, "I've learnt more in that 47 minutes than I have watching other videos in the whole of last week." And that's my goal for this video. I guarantee this will be the most complete guide to selling on Amazon that you will find on YouTube. So let's get started. In this video, I'm gonna cover the private label method of selling on Amazon. This is where you take a generic product, place your own brand on it, and then sell it using FBA, or Fulfilled by Amazon. This is where you get the product shipped to Amazon's warehouses, and then they take care of all the fulfillment. This means you've got a very scalable business selling physical products, which you can do from home or really anywhere in the world, as long as you have internet. Now, a couple of quick questions I always get asked: how much time and money do you need? So for private label, you'll need a minimum of $2,000, roughly speaking. If you have $3,000 to $5,000, that's even better. The more you have to start with, the quicker your business will grow. If you don't have this amount, then maybe consider starting out with retail arbitrage or wholesaling to raise some capital. The other question I often get is, how long does this business take to get up and running? Well, if you're just starting out, then it's typically 3 to 4 months from the day that you start until you receive that first sale, assuming you're doing this on the side of a full-time job or study or other commitments. The timeline would be shorter if you have more time available. Now let's get into the process. First up, you need to find a product to sell. So I'm gonna share with you the 6 criteria that you need. But first, a couple of pointers. Number 1, make sure your product decisions are data-driven and not just what you think will sell. Remember, the product you choose is the foundation of your business, so you wanna spend extra time in this stage. Next is to use a tool. You can do product research on your own, but tools make it much easier. I'm gonna be using our tool, Jungle Scout, throughout this video to show you the process. So, how do you decide what's a good product? Well, first, come up with a list of 10 to 15 product ideas based off of 3 main criteria: demand, profitability, and competition. Then narrow down the list to 2 to 3 top ideas by looking at secondary criteria such as the product improvement potential, legal limitations, and ease to source, import, and sell. We'll use the following Jungle Scout tools: the extension, product database, and product tracker to make sure your decisions are based off of data, not just opinions. Because we'll be using them, here's a quick overview of how the product database and the extension work. So with the product database, this is Amazon's entire catalog rebuilt to be searchable based off of specific filters that will allow us to narrow down product ideas, makes it so you don't have to rack your brain to come up with potential ideas yourself. So first up, you select the marketplace that you wanna sell in. And here we just recommend selling in whatever marketplace you're comfortable with, or if you have no preference, the US is really good because it's the biggest marketplace. Then you choose what categories you wanna sell in, the product tier, whether that's regular or oversized, the seller type, whether it's fulfilled by Amazon, fulfilled by merchant, or sold by Amazon themselves, and then input your filters. For example, the minimum and maximum price, the sales, reviews, listing quality score, and so on. Then see results based off of those filters. With the Chrome extension, here you'll see real-time information based off of an Amazon search results page. So you just go to Amazon.com, search for a potential product idea, and the page will populate with lots of great information. That's just a quick overview of those 2 tools. Now let's dive into the primary criteria number 1, which is demand. This is the number 1 component of a good product to sell. I know I've said it before, but we wanna find something that we know will sell well on Amazon based on data, not what people in your life say they want or what you think. So how do we determine demand? Well, using the Jungle Scout product database, we can choose the filter sales. And here I'd recommend looking for at least 300 units per month, which is about 10 sales per day, which is a good number to shoot for. Primary criteria number 2, competition. Now, while we wanna make sure that we've got high demand, at the same time, we wanna make sure that there's low competition so that we've got a good chance of being able to sell that product. So how do we go about determining competition? Well, a really great way to do so is by seeing the number of reviews that similar listings have. If they have low numbers of reviews but still sell well, then that means it's going to be easier for a new listing like ours to come in and sell against that existing product. You can set minimum and maximum values for reviews. So for instance, I'd set the maximum number of reviews somewhere between 50 to 100. Now, the other main criteria before searching is price. I'd recommend $15 as a minimum because below that, the profit margins become very slim, and then around $50 to $70 max. As above that, people are less likely to spend money on a brand they don't know. Now, we could do a basic search, and this will give us all the listings that have at least 300 sales per month, yet under 100 reviews. So this just gives us the individual listings that match our criteria. So the next step would be to analyze the entire market of that product. For instance, I'd now do a search for this product on Amazon, and what we want to see are the demand and competition levels, specifically in the top listings on this search page. This is because the majority of customers purchase from these listings and don't generally go much further when they're looking for a product. So we want to ensure that there's not too much competition that prevents us from getting into those top spots. And once we get there, that there's enough demand across all of those top spots so that we can take a share of those sales. Now, with reviews, of the top 10 listings of a particular product, we want to make sure that 3 to 5 of them have less than 50 reviews. When it comes to demand, we want to make sure there's an average of at least 300 sales per month. Once you've confirmed that, you then want to make sure that the sales are reasonably distributed amongst these top listings. If 1 or 2 listings are getting the majority of sales, then it may be best to pass on this product because customers are clearly only buying from those listings. So even if your product does rank in the top 10 here, it still won't get many sales. You want to validate that other listings in the top 10 are getting a reasonable share of the sales. Primary criteria number 3, profitability. As a general rule of thumb, you want to sell a product between $15 to $50 to allow for healthy profit margins. Below $15, the profit margins get very slim, and above $50, people are less likely to make impulse buys on a product or brand that they don't know. Also consider the 2 main costs that affect profitability. You've got landed costs and Amazon fees. Landed costs is mostly made up of the cost to make your product and then also the cost to ship it into Amazon. You can also include other costs such as any prep or inspection fees, any customs duties, which will vary based on where you're ordering from and where you're shipping to, and they will also change over time. But the bulk of that fee will be the product cost and the shipping cost. Then the other one I mentioned is Amazon fees. Amazon fees are composed of the referral fee, which is what they're charging you for bringing customers to your listing and selling it, which is usually up to 15% or about 15%, which is actually a great deal considering how much Amazon is doing. And then secondly, the fulfillment fee if you're using FBA, which depends on the weight and dimensions of your product and what marketplace you're selling in. Other additional fees that you may need to consider are long-term storage fees, which you get charged if your inventory stays in Amazon a long time, more than 365 days. You've also got your monthly Seller Central fee. That's just for using Amazon, or if you are on a professional subscription, that one is $39.99 per month. And then any other removal fees, which if for some reason you need to remove your inventory, but these fees are less common. So a good way to gauge your profitability is to calculate your ROI, which stands for return on investment. The goal here is to get at least 100% ROI, or at least that's a good target to shoot for, which basically means for every dollar you spend, you get $2 back. So real quick tips for this step. As an overarching concept, for every product that you're evaluating, think, can I source and ship to Amazon for substantially less than it's selling for? So consider the rule of thirds. 1/3 to fees, 1/3 to your landed cost, and then 1/3 for you. To help simplify this process, I recommend using 𝐙𝐚𝐲𝐽𝐼's FBA profit calculator to find out exactly what Amazon's fees would be for a certain product. For example, let's say I was looking to sell this birthday sign. Amazon's total fee is about $6, which is roughly 1/3 of the selling price. I would be aiming to source this product for under $6 in total for the product and the shipping into Amazon, so the landed cost. This gives me a profit of almost $8, which again is roughly 1/3 and gets me my 100% ROI. Now, if it were to cost much more than this, then that's when I'd move on to another product, as the profit margin on this one would be starting to get a little low. Once you've found a product that has high demand, low competition, and good profitability, the next step is to further verify the sales. And you can do this by adding all these top listings to the 𝐙𝐚𝐲𝐽𝐼 product tracker. So what it does is it tracks the daily sales of products. So if my product idea was, say, a garlic press, I'd recommend tracking at least 10 of the top listings for garlic press and doing so for at least 10 days or more. Now you've got a better idea of how many units this product sells per day across all of the top listings. This then becomes how much you could expect to make if you were to get your product listed in this top list of search results. Now to recap, these are our 3 main criteria: high demand, low competition, and profitability. Now let's look at some secondary criteria. Whilst not as crucial, these are more nice to haves which can help your product stand out from the competition. Number 1, improvement potential. It's very nice to find a product that has the ability to be improved. Again, you can find these products by searching for high demand, so we'll say a minimum of 300 sales per month, then come to average star rating. This is the rating that every product on Amazon has out of 5. So we'll set the maximum to 3, as that's a fairly poor listing on Amazon. And then search. So this will show us listings that are still selling well, despite the fact that people have rated it poorly. Then read through the existing 1-star, 2-star reviews to discover what people don't like about the product. This could be anything from color, material, size, usability, functionality, etc. Then take these problems and get your supplier to fix them and bring the improved product to market. This particular criteria is really quite powerful that it almost strays into a primary criteria. You've then got listing quality score. So keep in mind that improvements don't have to be just product improvements, but could also be listing improvements. Here you would look for listings that have a low listing quality score, but again, at the same time, they're still in high demand. So people are buying this product despite the fact that the listing isn't well optimized. They don't have many images, they're not using their bullet points, they're just not selling their product really well. This gives you a marketing opportunity to come in and improve upon your listing, have better images, better bullet points, description, etc. Another simple way to do this is to bundle your product with something else. So if you look at a listing, you'll see a frequently bought with section. And if you see the same item being frequently bought with this product on multiple listings, then it could be a good option to bundle with yours. This means that you're offering additional value to customers who only need to buy your product now to get the 2 things that they want. Plus, it helps you stand out from the competition and oftentimes is more profitable because you can sell it at a higher price. Another tip is that as you're doing this brainstorming for these improvement ideas, you can store all of them as notes inside of the product tracker. And then one final tip here is to buy competing products to gain some insight into what they're doing, how it could be improved, and so forth. Secondary criteria number 2, legal and liability issues. First up, a disclaimer, I am not a lawyer. But I did want to touch on this because we get these questions all the time. So the most important questions to ask yourself when it comes to selling a potential product, are there any existing patents on this product? You can't sell something that has a patent on it. A patent means that someone else owns the rights to the design or the way something functions. So how do you know if there is a patent? Well, the only way to know for sure is to hire a lawyer. But some quick steps that you can take on your own include doing a Google search for your product idea plus patent. You can check listings on Amazon for that product and see if they mention anything regarding a patent. Oftentimes, if a product has a patent, you'll see it on the packaging of that particular product. You can also check if there are many other people selling a similar product. If so, then this is usually a good sign, as patent holders typically enforce their patent, stopping others from listing the same thing. But again, these are just some quick things that you can do that don't guarantee there isn't a patent on a product. The best thing to do is to hire a lawyer, but I just wanted to give you some quick and dirty ways to do some initial checks. The next thing to consider is potential liabilities. So could someone easily get hurt from using your product? Some examples might be things that go in or on people's bodies, or flammable, hazardous products, etc. Next is to consider trademarks. You can search the trademark database on USPTO or a site like Trademarkia in order to see whether a trademark exists for the product that you're looking to sell. You also need to consider whether Amazon has any restrictions on selling your type of product. Here are some of the prohibited items that you can't sell on Amazon. If you're ever unsure whether you can sell the product that you're looking at, here's a handy tip. Once you have a Seller Central account, which don't worry, we'll cover a bit later, you can actually go and create a listing, type in the name of your product, and it will actually tell you whether Amazon has any restrictions around this item. All right, onto secondary criteria number 3, ease to sell. This includes sourcing, importing, selling, the whole process. So especially for your first product, you want something that isn't gonna give you many headaches. You want a simple product that's easy for a factory to make or make changes to. Try not to have a product with too many moving parts or that can be easily broken. You also want smaller, lighter products because they're easier to ship, they're cheaper, plus they cost less in Amazon fees once they arrive. And again, with selling, simple is better. Ask yourself, is it breakable? Is it likely to be returned? Or is it hard to use? How long will it last? Do you think it'll get a lot of negative reviews? Is it really big or bulky? Keep these factors in mind. Now, these secondary criteria are much more subjective than the primary ones. The more product research you do, the more of these will just become part of your thought process as you go. Now, some final tips before you select the product that you choose to move forward with. First, before making the final selection, check the product tracker again. How have things changed over the past few weeks? Next, an item doesn't have to meet every single criteria that I've outlined. Oftentimes, products won't. It might check one box, but then not be as strong in another. This is where you need to use your best judgment and find the best balance of the above criteria that I mentioned. Next up is to not get stuck in analysis paralysis. Ultimately, choose something and move on to the next step. If you can't choose between 2 or 3 products, then a good idea here is to reach out to potential suppliers to get some more accurate quotes on pricing. This way you can see exactly how profitable each one of these products is and consider that when you're making your decision. Once you've found a product idea, next we have to find someone to make our product. A couple of resources that I'm gonna reference during this section are Alibaba, which is essentially a marketplace like Amazon, but for suppliers. You go on there, search for any product that you like, and you'll find suppliers who make that product from all over the world. I'll also reference the Jungle Scout supplier database. This tool captures US import records so you can easily see who is manufacturing goods, who is importing goods, as well as the quantity, size, and description of those goods. Now, as an overview, here's my simple 6-step process to sourcing a product. Step number 1, create a short list of 5 to 10 suppliers based off of the 4 qualities that I'll share with you in a moment. Step 2, send them an initial contact email using specific guidelines. Step 3, vet your suppliers to narrow down your top 3. Step 4, order samples from these top 3 suppliers to further narrow down your options. Step 5, place an order with your top supplier. And step 6, run an inspection to ensure the quality of your product. So step number 1, the 4 qualities of a supplier. Quality 1 is to have a high quality product. On Amazon, customers mostly buy based off of reviews, so a low quality product will ultimately lead to bad reviews. A good way to check this is to get multiple samples from different factories in order to compare the quality. Also keep an eye on what regions the supplier that you're looking at is creating products for. The Middle East, Southeast Asia, and Africa typically have different quality standards than that of Europe or North America. A great way to do this is to enter the supplier name into the supplier database. You may be able to find the companies that they sell to in the US and then track down a listing of that product on Amazon. Here you can see the reviews that customers give this product, which is ultimately the best way of judging the quality. But also don't get confused here. It is okay if this supplier is selling to someone else who's listing this product on Amazon. If you choose to go with them, then we'll be getting our own branding and packaging and creating our own product. They're just manufacturing it. So quality number 2 is experience. Look for a factory that has been producing your type of product for a long time. You can see the supplier's import history in the supplier database, and you can also see their years in business on their profile from somewhere such as Alibaba. Usually suppliers will be in one of 2 categories, either a manufacturer or a trading company. A trading company is more of a middleman that purchases products from a variety of suppliers and then on-sells them. Generally, you'd want to work directly with a supplier to get the best prices and easily discuss changes that you might want with the product itself. It's harder to do that with a trading company because again, they're more of a middleman. And because of this, their prices are typically a bit higher as they've got to make a profit as well. The advantage of a trading company though, is that you can often get smaller minimum order quantities. A manufacturer may require you to order 500 or 1,000 pieces at a minimum, whereas a trading company usually allows a lot less. On Alibaba, you'll typically see whether they are a manufacturer or a trading company, but another good way to check is to see what types of products they're selling. If you see lots of different products that would be typically made using different materials or different machinery, then they're probably a trading company. A supplier would only be selling products that are made in a similar nature. Quality number 3, communication. You want to make sure that you can find a supplier that is easy to communicate with. A way to judge this is how clearly they answer all your questions when you contact them. Once you start sending emails, this will be pretty easy to see. Some suppliers will completely ignore a lot of your questions and others will answer, or often somewhere in between. You want to work with someone that is responsive. Quality number 4, price. Look for a factory that's going to give you a fair price. Once you start contacting a bunch of suppliers, you'll soon get a picture of the average market price. I would just exclude the super high prices as well as the super low prices, which also seem kind of strange. One note on pricing is that while you want a fair price, I wouldn't beat a supplier to death for the absolute cheapest price possible. Having a good relationship with a supplier is critically important to your business, so as long as you've got a fair price, I would be happy with that. Now, as you're doing your research and making a list of suppliers based off of this criteria, you can use the 𝐙𝐚𝐲𝐧𝐢𝐝 supplier database. Here you can perform searches by typing in either the product name, the importing company, if you know a company in the US that's selling that product, the name of the supplier themselves. This will be useful if you found a supplier on Alibaba, for instance, and you want to verify the information they give there. They might say they've worked with the US for 10 years, but in the supplier database, you can see actually how many shipments have actually been imported. Finally, you can also search using a similar product's ASIN. So you'd select a similar product on Amazon, then copy their ASIN in either the URL or in the product information section, paste that in, and supplier database will attempt to find their particular supplier. This doesn't work 100% of the time, but it's a great search to try. Because as I mentioned earlier, if this product is getting great reviews on Amazon and you can find the supplier who makes it, then you know they make high quality products. Step 2, send an initial contact email. Now that you've made a list of potential suppliers, you'll want to contact them. This will give you the necessary information about your product and will also let you judge their level of communication. As you contact suppliers, track their responses and details using the supplier tracker. You'll first need to track down each supplier's contact information. You can do this through the supplier tracker or by performing a quick Google search. The other option is to contact them through Alibaba's messaging system, but this can get a little messy. Here are some tips on what to say in your initial email. Introduce yourself. Lay out your product requirements. It's best to do this in a bulleted list. You'll want to include what your product is called, as much detail as you can regarding the product's specifications, and any modifications to how this product is typically made. Include a picture of your product with the modifications clearly marked. A tip here is that you can use a tool called Snagit to easily create these. Also, lay out your packaging requirements. any questions you have, and again, these should be laid out in a bulleted list. Potential questions you can ask here are, can you send me a sample? How much is the sample? What payment terms do you offer? What is the minimum order quantity? What is the lead time? Are you aware of any patent or certification issues for this product? Send the same email out to your entire list of suppliers so you can judge their responses equally. Some things to note regarding the responses you'll get. The price you'll get will differ depending on the number of units you're ordering and whether the shipping terms will be FOB, which is where the supplier is responsible for getting your product to the port, or EXW, where the supplier is not responsible for getting your goods to the port. EXW is typically cheaper, but FOB is more common. Step 3, vet your suppliers to narrow down your list to your top 3. As your responses start coming in, track all of your information using the supplier tracker. Input your quotes, including sample cost, sample shipping costs, and any other details. Take notes throughout the whole process, including how easy communication was, and from this, select your top 3 suppliers. Step number 4, order samples from these top 3 suppliers in order to further narrow down your options. A few notes regarding this. It's typical for you to pay anywhere from $50 to $150 for a sample. The best way to pay is with a wire transfer, as this ensures you have all the information correct for when you make your full order. But PayPal is often quite common for these small payments too. You may just be asked to pay an extra fee if you choose this method. The other payment method to be familiar with is using trade assurance through the Alibaba platform. This can be good to use as it provides a little more protection for your payments that you make. This and wire transfers are the main options you would use when it comes to the full order as well. When you receive samples, compare them one to another. What's the quality of the sample like? Use it the way that the customer would and see how it holds up. Also, how quickly did they arrive? Was the communication easy? Based on this information and everything else you have in your supplier tracker, it's time to pick your supplier. One thing I'd note here is that a supplier will rarely be perfect in every single area. Having the best product, the best communication, and also the best price. Usually you have to weigh up the pros and cons and pick the supplier that ticks the most boxes. Step number 5, place an order with your top supplier. This is an exciting step, but also a scary one for a lot of people. So here are a few tips regarding price negotiation. And keep in mind, this process will often take place before you decide on your final supplier, so you'll usually have your final prices from suppliers when you make that decision. So tip number 1, it's best if you have more than one supplier that you'd be willing to work with, as you can push harder without worrying about losing them. Usually this will come from that top 3 suppliers that you created before. Figure out what the maximum is that you'd be willing to pay and be willing to walk away if you're not satisfied with the price that they give you. Ask for how many units you would need to order in order to get a better price. If you can't get the price you want right now, but you know that you can get that price down in the future when you place larger orders, then you can be okay with a slightly higher price to begin with. Once you've settled on a price, we recommend creating a purchase order to send your supplier and then paying their invoice. We have sample purchase order agreements that you can include, as well as a template to fill out to generate a purchase order. You may not be able to legally enforce this purchase order, but it's a great way to make very clear what you're ordering. Typical payment terms are 30% upfront, 70% once your order ships, or 50% upfront and then 50% when your order ships is also common. Step number 6, run an inspection to ensure the quality of your product. So a lot of people choose to have an inspection done on their product, but this is an optional step. You have to balance the risk versus reward in your instance. So how it works is you pay a third-party company, 2 popular ones are Kima and VTrust, and they'll send a representative out to your supplier. They can check for specific things you ask them to look for, but they'll also have a list of standard checks. The reason to do this is to ensure you have a high quality product. Even if you got a great sample from them, you want to ensure that your entire order is up to that standard. If you don't have enough money to pay for an inspection, you can also run what we call a poor man's inspection. This is where you just ask your sales rep to send you pictures throughout the process or video chat with you so you can see the products yourself. Additionally, you can even include this in your agreement within the purchase order. What we've done in the past is add in a section that states the shipment must pass the inspection, and if it doesn't, then the supplier needs to fix the problem and then pay for a new inspection until it passes. This is a great way to hold your supplier accountable for creating high quality products. Now, before we go much further, let's talk about packaging, branding, and Amazon brand registry. Let's start by talking about what makes a good brand name. If you're creating a product following the steps that we're outlining here, you really are creating a brand for yourself. I'd recommend choosing a brand name that's quite simple and generic and can be applied to a broad range of products. If building a business around a particular market is important to you, then you can go with something more specific like Lenny's Spatula Store or Lenny's Dog Products. But if you're starting this business just to find products that sell and you don't mind what they are, then I'd recommend keeping your name broader so that you can sell more products underneath that. Now let's talk about packaging. This is an important step as you need to meet certain requirements. So let me walk you through a 4-step process for breaking down your product's packaging. Step number 1, determine your packaging style. A good place to start here is by asking your factory what they typically do for this type of product. From here, you can decide if this is what you want to go with or if you want to improve upon that basic packaging. This decision will be based on what you think your customer expects for your type of product. For instance, if it's a gift item, you might want some fancier packaging. And on the flip side, if it's just a disposable item, for instance, customers may not care how it's packaged. So your packaging could be anything from just a bag to a plain cardboard box or a well-designed box, etc. Step number 2, figure out what packaging requirements your product has. So different types of products will have different legal requirements, and different countries will also have different legal requirements. It can be difficult to know exactly what you need, so we'd recommend ordering your competitors' products and seeing what they have printed on their packaging, or asking an inspection company what legal requirements they know of. 2 requirements though that all packaging has is 1, an FNSKU barcode. This is a code that Amazon requires for all products being sent in. You'll get this code in Seller Central when you set up your listing, which I'll also be showing you later on, and we'd recommend printing this straight onto your product's packaging if you're only selling on Amazon. The second thing required on your packaging is your country of origin. This is wherever your product was manufactured. So on to step number 3 of creating your packaging, which is to decide which nice to haves you want to include. Something visually appealing, your contact information, or even product inserts. This is where you can ask people to give you their email address or leave a review and so on. If you do decide to include these, remember you're not allowed to ask for only happy customers to write reviews. Step number 4, design and create your packaging. You can keep this really simple or design something more involved. Some good options include a tool like Canva to design something yourself, or you can hire someone on a site such as the Jungle Scout Market to design it for you. You'll then need to send the designs to your supplier in what's known as a vector format. Next, we're going to talk briefly about Amazon Brand Registry. This is a program that Amazon rolled out a few years ago that allows brand owners to have greater listing control, additional functionality, and additional protection over all products within that registered brand. To sign up, you must have a registered trademark, which is typically the hardest part. It usually takes a really long time to get, often 6 to 8 months. You can speed up this process by taking advantage of something called the Amazon IP Accelerator, where if you use Amazon's pre-vetted law firms, Amazon will allow you to enroll in brand registry once you've applied for the trademark, instead of waiting until the final registration. Otherwise, you can find trademark support on the Jungle Scout Market if the IP Accelerator is too expensive for you. Now, Amazon Brand Registry isn't a requirement to start selling on Amazon. It does have certain benefits though, and you'll hear me mention a number of these. Some of these benefits include being able to report listings that are violating your intellectual property, use A+ content, which basically allows you to add more images and text on your listing, and upload videos to your listing. Again, this isn't necessary when you first start out, and I always suggest for people just to get started first and then apply for brand registry as soon as it makes sense for you and your business. Now that you've found a product and found someone to manufacture it, it's time to set up your business and Seller Central account. I'll walk you through both, but remember, I am not a lawyer. This isn't legal advice, I'm just sharing what I've seen work for other people. So let's begin with setting up a separate legal entity. Now, this isn't a requirement, but there are a number of advantages. The most common legal entity for this type of business is an LLC. It's not particularly expensive and it doesn't affect your taxes too much, which is nice. Some of the advantages of an LLC are having your business separate from you. This shields you from any potential liabilities and protects your personal assets. 2 is having the ability to set up a separate business bank account and credit card. And 3, some freight forwarders will require you to have a company in order to do work with them. So as far as a name for your LLC, this doesn't really matter much at all. It won't display to your customers anywhere. As far as where to set up your LLC, this is really up to you. The other part of your business that you'll need to set up is your Amazon Seller Central account. This is the headquarters for running your business, so I'll run you through setting up an account in the US marketplace, but the steps are similar for other marketplaces too. First, you'll choose what marketplace you want to sell in. Our recommendations are, if you live in the US, sell in the US marketplace. If you live outside the US in a country that has their own marketplace, then sell in the one that seems easier. For instance, it might be your own country because you understand your country's tax regulations and so forth. All Amazon marketplaces have enough demand that you can make a profit. Otherwise, sell in the US marketplace. Then if you live in a country without their own marketplace, we typically recommend just selling in the US as it's the biggest. To sign up for your account, go to services.amazon.com. Next, you'll have 2 options, an individual or a professional account. If you're serious about your Amazon business, I'd recommend a professional account, but here's a quick description of both. Individual is a free account, but Amazon will charge you 99 cents per sale, and not all categories will be available to you, and you won't access certain features such as advertising. A professional account costs $40 a month, and you're free to sell in any category as well as advertise. You can transition to a professional account at any time, so feel free to start out with an individual account if you like, and then switch over once you've selected your product and are in the process of having it manufactured. You'll then have to sign in with an Amazon account or create a new one. I'd recommend setting up a new Amazon account for this to keep your personal shopping separate. Amazon will send you a verification code in order to confirm your new account. Then in the account setup, you first start by entering your country or business location. Next up is your business type. You can sign up as an individual or as a business if you've got one set up. If you have set up a US LLC as a single member, then you can just select individual instead of business, as it's treated very similarly. If you're selling as an individual, you'll just put your name, agree and continue. If you selected individual, then you'll need to enter information about your country of citizenship, country of birth, and date of birth. Or if you've chosen a business, then you'll need to enter your company registration number. Following that, you need to enter your business address, regardless of whether you're an individual or a business. Keep in mind that you do need to be able to receive mail at this address, as Amazon may send a postcard there for verification. Now, we have heard people having trouble at this step getting their address verified, so what we've heard works best is to use your own physical address regardless, even if you live outside of the US, as Amazon will reject your application if they can't verify via the mail verification postcard or some utility bill. At this point, you'll need to enter your phone number, and Amazon will send you a verification code to enter. Once you've verified that, click Next. Now you enter a credit card to charge your subscription to. If you have an LLC, consider signing up for a business credit card. If you're selling from outside the US, you can use a service such as Payoneer or TransferWise to get yourself a card. The next step is now to create a store name. This can really be whatever you want. It is separate to and not as important as the brand name which you choose to sell your products under, and you can change it in the future. Do you have UPCs for all of your products? I would say yes, because you will need these for any products that you list. Are you the manufacturer or brand owner? In our case, yes, we're private labeling, which means that we are the brand owner and the manufacturer. If you've already gotten a trademark for your brand, then you can say yes here, as this is the beginning of the brand registry process. But if you're just starting out, you likely won't have this, and you can click no. and you can always apply for brand registry at a later point. On this final screen, double check your information is correct, upload any necessary documents for Amazon to verify you. This might change depending on what country or information that you entered. Then click submit, and your account will be reviewed by Amazon and hopefully set up soon. Now, a quick note here that Amazon can be a little fussy when it comes to verifying accounts. So if you don't get verified the first time, I just encourage you to try again. And that's it. You'll now have full access to Amazon Seller Central. If you're selling from outside the US, check out our other YouTube video regarding extra challenges that you might face and how to overcome them for this step. So you've got your product being manufactured. Now you have to figure out how it's going to get from your supplier all the way to Amazon's fulfillment centers. The first thing I'll mention is that while I'll run you through all the steps, I'd highly recommend hiring what's known as a freight forwarder. This is someone who arranges the entire shipment process and is knowledgeable about everything from shipping terms to customs, packing and labeling and so on. They essentially become a trusted partner for your business, and in a lot of ways, the process would be almost impossible for the average person without them. The one time I'd say that you don't necessarily need a freight forwarder is when you're sending in a very small, low value shipment. I'll cover what that looks like in a bit. So how do you go about finding a freight forwarder? Well, there are a number of places you can look, but I'd recommend freightos.com. Here you can actually get quotes from multiple freight forwarders and see which quote looks best to you. Some things to look for in a good freight forwarder include the price, how well they communicate, whether they've worked with small sellers like yourself before, whether they've worked with importing your type of good before, and if they're knowledgeable on all of Amazon's requirements. So now let's run through the shipping process. Step number 1, get your goods from your factory to the international port that they'll be departing from. Here you essentially have two options. First, your factory can be responsible for getting the goods to the port. The shipping term for this is FOB, or free on board. This is the most common option. Alternatively, you or your freight forwarder can be responsible for getting the goods to the port, so essentially picking it up from the factory. The shipping term for this is EXW, or X-Works. Step number 2, your goods will be transported to Amazon via air or sea. Now, some notes regarding these two options. When it comes to sea, this is the more typical option as it's much cheaper. It'll cost you roughly $1 per kilo, though this number does vary as the cost is more to do with the volume than the weight. It usually takes 3 to 4 weeks for sea shipping. Then you have a couple of options here regarding the container that you choose for shipping. If you have enough goods to fill the entire container, you'll ship a full container load, also known as FCL. If you don't have enough goods to fill an entire container, you'll ship less than container load, also known as LCL. In this case, your goods will be shipped with other people's goods in the container also. With air, this option is much more expensive. It'll cost you about $5 per kilo roughly, but will usually only take 5 to 10 days, so it's much quicker. If your shipment is very small and lightweight, then air shipping might make sense for you. Additionally, if you're in a rush to get your product into Amazon, then this may be a better option for you also. Step number 3, your goods will arrive at the domestic port of entry. Now they'll start the process of clearing customs. Allow approximately 1 week for this. This is where you want to enlist the help of a customs broker. Typically though, your freight forwarder will act as your customs broker or hire someone for you. Depending on your product, there may be specific paperwork that you need. Your freight forwarder should be able to tell you this. Some documents you'll definitely need, however, are a bill of lading. This is the master document for your shipping and proves that you own your shipment. Commercial invoice. This is a legal document between you and your supplier and outlines your goods. It contains your HS code, which is basically a code used to determine the duties that you'll pay. A quick tip here, make sure your name and your supplier's name are consistent across all documents. Now here are some things that will take place during the process. Pay duties. Now this is based off of your HS code. Potentially your goods will get inspected. They'll need a customs bond. This ensures the payment of duties and money owed to customs officials. You can get these on either a single, just for one shipment, or annual basis for all shipments that year. Once your customs broker pays the duties, inspections are complete, and all paperwork has been confirmed to be in order, your goods will be released. And we're on to step number 4. Your goods need to be prepped for Amazon, including being labeled and palletized. This typically takes place at a 3PL or third-party logistics company. The only time that you won't need any prep is if you've sent in a full container load that is floor loaded, meaning that the container is full of your goods but is not palletized. It's best to find a freight forwarder that can also serve as your 3PL to streamline this process. One of the first decisions that you'll need to make is if you're shipping via SPD, which is small parcel delivery, or a truckload, either full truckload or less than truckload. Here are the deciding factors on when to pick which one. Typically, shipments that weigh less than 150 pounds are cheaper sent by SPD. Anything heavier than that, it's best to use LTL. In order for your goods to make it successfully to Amazon, it'll require a number of different labels. These should either already be on your product, or you'll need to print them from Seller Central and pass them along to your 3PL to affix. They are your FNSKU barcode. If your products are exclusively for Amazon, we recommend printing this directly onto the packaging, so you don't have to worry about it being done at this step. Next is your shipment ID labels. These are required for Amazon to identify your product. When these boxes rock up, they need to know that they are coming from you and what the product is. If you're sending in boxes that are not palletized, also known as small parcel delivery or SPD, each box will need a shipment ID. If you're sending in pallets, each pallet will need 4 of these on each side of the pallet. Step number 5, time to get your goods into Amazon. Let me walk you through setting up a shipment in Seller Central. This is a step that you'll have to do on your own, even if you've hired a freight forwarder to handle everything else. So to begin, go to Inventory, Manage Inventory. On the right-hand side, click the drop down for the product that you want to send in and click Send Replenish Inventory. Start by selecting your ship from address. This would usually be either the address of the freight forwarder or 3PL that's holding your shipment. Next, you'll decide whether you're sending in individual or case-packed products. Individual means you have different SKUs or products inside of one box, whereas case-packed means you only have the one product inside this carton. Next, you'll need to tell Amazon how many units are in each case and how many cases you're sending in. Now you have to select who does the prep for your shipment. All Amazon cares about is whether it's Amazon or someone else. Your specific product may have specific prep requirements, so look through this list carefully. We recommend having the supplier or 3PL do the prep rather than Amazon, as Amazon will charge you more. You'll also tell Amazon whether you want them to apply the FNSKU barcodes or if you will. Again, you could have these already printed onto your packaging, which is what I'd recommend, or usually your supplier is happy to stick them on if you ask them. Amazon will charge you 20 cents per unit if they do it. Amazon will now tell you what fulfillment centers you'll be sending your goods to. It's common for this to be up to 3 different centers. For each fulfillment center, click on Work on Shipment to set up the details. There are a number of steps here. The first is to decide if you're shipping SPD or LTL. We've already discussed the differences here. For either SPD or LTL, you'll have to enter dimensions, weights, and quantities of your product. Once Amazon shows you the shipping charges, you'll click Accept and then have the ability to print out necessary shipping labels that you can send to your 3PL or freight forwarder. Finally, click Complete Shipment. You can see the status of your shipment here as well. The options are either working, if you're still working on it, in transit, at fulfillment center, and closed. I know shipping can be quite complex, so here are a few takeaways. Number 1, use a freight forwarder. I can't emphasize this enough. They're experts at this and they can take care of and walk you through all of the steps that I've just covered. Next, aim for sea shipping whenever possible. You may choose air shipping to begin with to get your product into Amazon as quickly as possible, but then most people aim to get their shipments in by sea in the future to save on costs. Also remember that regardless of the shipping method you choose, it still does take a while, so take this into consideration when planning out your shipments. And finally, don't be stressed. I know this sounds like a lot, but just take it one step at a time. You'll learn as you go. Next up, we're gonna talk about creating a listing. So your listing is how customers will find and purchase your product. So this step is incredibly important. As I mentioned, it does take some time to get your product shipped into Amazon. So creating your listing is one of the few tasks you can be working on during this time. So let me take you through a 7-step process for setting up a successful listing. Number 1, do research into what keywords to include in your listing. Draft your listing's title, bullet points, draft your listing's description. Purchase the necessary UPC barcode for your product, get pictures for your listing, and create your listing in Seller Central. So step number 1, do research into what keywords to include in your listing. Keywords are the way that customers find your listing, making this an essential step and definitely not something you should skip over. If you do this well once, you'll have a full list of keywords to use for your listing, as well as later on for your PPC advertising campaigns. Let me run you through my top 2 tips for coming up with your keyword list for your product. Number 1, using Keyword Scout, search for whatever keyword you think is most relevant for your product. Hit search. For example, if I'm selling an artificial plant, I would search for this in Keyword Scout. The search results will populate with all the keywords that people used and then ultimately purchased your product by. So you may see terms that you mightn't have even thought of. Keyword Scout automatically sorts the results by 30-day search volume, so you'll see the most popular keywords on Amazon. Here you'll learn the actual terms that customers are searching for, which mightn't always be what you thought. Now you can save all these keywords to a keyword list. And for my second tip, head over to Amazon, search for your top competitors, copy their ASIN. This is just a unique identifier that Amazon gives each of its products. Paste this into Keyword Scout, and now you'll see all the keywords that they're ranking for. Add these to your list as well. You can do this for as many competitors as you would like. I'd suggest at least 2 to 3. You'll now have a comprehensive list of keywords to use for your listing. Step number 2, draft your listing's title. For all the steps of drafting your listing, I'd recommend using the listing builder inside of Jungle Scout. This will help you organize your keywords, making sure you aren't using duplicates and that you are incorporating all the top performing keywords in your listing. Listing Builder is also able to automatically pull information from Amazon and then push the changes back to Amazon if you've got your account synced with Jungle Scout. For your title, it's important that it both flows and is legible, but also that you include in as many of the top keywords that are very relevant for your product and also have a high search volume. So the process would be to take these high search volume keywords and weave as many of them as you can into the title as possible, whilst still making it readable to a customer. Something like this, for example. It's a good rule of thumb for your title, as well as the other sections of your listing, to make sure to use as many of the characters as allowed for your category. Step number 3, draft your listing's bullet points. While your title is all about your keywords, the focus of your bullet points should be to inform customers about the top features of your product. You do also want to include the rest of your highly used relevant keywords. Again, use as many characters as you're allowed to. Different categories have different character limits, so make sure to find out exactly what that is for your product. If you're not sure what to write about, check the following sections of your competitors' listings to get some inspiration. You can check either their features section, you can check their bullet points, the questions section, and the reviews section. A few additional tips for your bullet points. Put the main keywords right at the start, then put them in all caps. Offer a money back guarantee. Amazon always gives this to their customers anyway, so you may as well use this to your advantage. If there are any complaints on your competitors' listings that your product overcomes, then make sure to include this in your listing. Remember, you can always go back and edit this, so don't stress too much. Step number 4, draft your listing's description. Like the other components of your listing, this can be drafted within Listing Builder. This section is less likely to be read by your customers, but use it to include additional keywords, talk about your company or anything else about your product that you want your customers to know. If you're brand registered, you can actually replace this section with what is known as A+ content. This allows you to add more images and text that highlight what makes your product stand out. You can find this in Seller Central under Advertising, A+ Content Manager. When you're creating this, make sure to see how it'll look on mobile, as A+ content will actually show first before your bullet points on a mobile device. Amazon has different templates you can utilize here also. Step number 5, purchase the UPC barcode for your product. Now, in order to create your listing in Seller Central, Amazon requires you to have something called a UPC barcode. This is the barcode that you essentially see on all packaging. UPC barcodes can be purchased directly from GS1, which is the agency that manages this. They can also technically be purchased from third-party sellers at a cheaper rate. However, this is against Amazon's terms of service, so I'd advise against this. You're required to have one UPC barcode per product or per product variation that you're selling. In order to purchase them, go to gs1.org. On the right-hand side, click on Get a GS1 barcode. The website will then walk you through the process of purchasing your barcode. Now, people often get confused between this UPC barcode and the FN-SKU barcode, and which one to print or stick onto their packaging. So to clarify, you only need the UPC barcode in order to create your listing. Once you've created your listing, you only then need your FN-SKU barcode on the product itself. You no longer need the UPC barcode at this point. On to step number 6, which is get images for your listing. Images are incredibly important for your product, so it's important to do this step as best you can. You essentially have two options. Either you take the images yourself or you hire a professional. If you're looking to hire a professional, check out the Jungle Scout Market to find professional photographers who are familiar with Amazon's image requirements. These are some of Amazon's requirements. Your main image needs to be against a plain white background without any props or watermarks. 85% of the image has to be taken up by your product. It must only show the product for sale with few or no props and no logos, watermarks, or inset images. It can only contain text that is part of the product. If you'd like your image to be zoomable, then it'll need to be at least 1000 by 500 pixels. I'd highly recommend this as we've seen zoomable images tend to help conversion. You're usually able to upload 7 to 9 pictures, and I'd recommend having as many as you're allowed. Once a customer is on your listing, your goal changes a little bit. You now want to convert them to buying, and your pictures can play a huge role in that. You want your pictures to clear up any confusion that they might have, as well as allow them to picture how life would be better if they had your product. One way of doing this is including lifestyle photos. These are images that show your product being used by your customers, giving the customer a way to put themselves in the model's shoes. These should hit on their emotions. They are a little bit harder to get, but are definitely worthwhile. Additional visual elements that you can include on your listing are infographics. This is any additional design work on your photos that highlights the main benefits of your product. You can do something like a competitive matrix, showing the dimensions, arrows that highlight the main benefits, or anything else that calls out the benefits and what sets your product apart. For this, keep in mind that many customers will be browsing on mobile devices, so keep your designs simple and clear. If you're brand registered, you can also include videos in the photo section. Step number 7, create your listing in Seller Central. Now that you've prepared all the elements of your listing, it should be a simple process to actually create your listing in Seller Central. To start, click on Catalog, Add Products. If you're selling FBA, click on I'm adding a product not sold on Amazon. The next step is to select the category to list your product in. Scroll down to search and search for your type of product. You'll want to choose a category that's most appropriate for your product. On this next page, under Product ID, is where you want to put in your UPC barcode. Under Product Name, put in the title you created. Under Brand Name, put in your brand name. If you're selling FBA, manufacturer will be the same as your brand name, or really whatever you want it to be, as you are the manufacturer. On this next page is where you'll set up any variations that you might have, whether that be size, color, etc. The seller SKU is something that you can just make up, but I'd recommend doing this as you'll reference this quite a lot in the future, so you have the chance to make it something that's easy to identify. Under the fulfillment channel, select FBA. Now it's time to upload your images, but keep in mind you can change this at any point. In order to put in your additional information, such as your bullet points and descriptions, you'll have to select Advanced View. You can do this now, or you can come back at a later point. Here you'll see a lot of additional fields pop up. You'll definitely want to fill in your bullet points, description, dimensions, and weight. Depending on the category you're selling in, you may have some additional fields to fill in. If you're ever unsure about what a particular field is asking, then just hover over the question mark and Amazon will give you additional information. Under keywords, fill these out. These are your backend keywords. It's a little hard to know exactly how these are used for ranking, but it's worth filling them out just in case. Once you click Save Changes, your listing will now show up in Seller Central. You can go back and edit this at any time. Keep in mind that your listing won't be active or public on Amazon.com until you've sent in inventory. So it's okay if you haven't completely finished your listing and you want to do some more work on it, as long as it's finalized before you actually start selling. We do have a separate video on this topic if you'd like to learn more. Now it's time to successfully launch your product. It's very important to start getting sales as soon as your product hits Amazon. It's believed that Amazon gives your product a bit of a boost during its first month. So you want to take advantage of this time and get sales straight away. And the way to get sales is to have your product rank well in Amazon's search results. While Amazon hasn't revealed exactly how they determine ranking, there are 3 factors that seem to play a big part. Let's walk through them. First is sales velocity. This is the rate at which your product is selling. Next is sales history. This is how many sales you get over a period of time, and this one is the hardest to control. And finally is the conversion rate. This is the percentage of people who go to your listing and purchase. For example, if 100 customers went and visited your listing and then 60 of those went ahead and purchased, this would be a conversion rate of 60%. This is the factor that you have the most control over when you first get started. A few factors that will affect conversion rate are customer reviews or social proof, listing quality, which includes your pictures, having good copy, and answering customer questions, etc. Price, and here a lower price will generally convert at a higher rate, relevancy of your product for the keywords used, and optimizing for mobile. And we'll go over these in more detail. Okay, so you know you need sales. How many do you need to get every day? Well, this number will vary depending on what the main keyword is that you're trying to rank for. Inside of Jungle Scout, you can use Keyword Scout to actually tell you how many daily sales you need to be getting for at least a couple of weeks in order to give you the best chance of ranking on page 1 for that particular search term. Now, we recommend 2 strategies to get sales at launch. They are promoting your product through a deals website and using Amazon PPC. So for promoting through a deals website, the way this works is that you offer a steep discount for your product on this deals website, and people then purchase your product on Amazon because it's a good deal for them, but at the same time, it also gives you those tough to get initial sales. Jungle Scout has a deals website built into it that's easy to use. Here's how it works. Click on promotions, then create a promotion, select your product, and Jungle Scout will now import all of your images and description from Amazon. You can make any changes that you want, then click next. Here, Jungle Scout sets up something called inventory protection. This makes sure that people can only purchase as many products as you allow, making sure that one person doesn't purchase a large quantity of your items at a big discount. Typically, you'd want this to be at a maximum of 1. The next step is to get your coupon codes. These need to be generated from Seller Central itself in order for them to work on Amazon. Jungle Scout is just the platform to distribute these to customers. And there's a video here you can watch on how to create these coupon codes. Now you set up your discount. We usually recommend starting at around 70% off and see how many requests you get. If enough people are requesting, then stick with this number. But if you're not getting as many hits as you would like, then you can increase your discount to 80% or even 90% off. Next, you need to decide how you want to distribute your codes. You can set it up to either manually go into Jungle Scout yourself and approve each of the customers, or you can set this up to automatically approve for you and send those codes out to the customers. Then you're all set up. JumpSend is the customer-facing website and will now display your product and bargain hunters looking for discounted products can request a coupon code and then purchase your product on Amazon. Something to keep in mind is that if you give away too many units, Amazon may think you're trying to mess around with their algorithms and you could get in trouble. But if you stay under, say, 30 per day, we haven't seen too many issues. Now, it may seem counterintuitive to be offering your product at such a steep discount. Typically, you'll be breaking even or maybe even losing a little bit of money on each of these discounted sales. You need to understand that this is a necessary step. View it as a marketing budget in order to help kickstart and launch your product. We've seen lots of people that are hesitant to either break even or lose some money up front on their product, and the result of that is that they end up staying on page 20 or 30 of search results and their product never breaks through the ranks and gains traction. So keep in mind, this is just a launch strategy. Remember, the aim is just to get some initial sales, and this will help you rank organically on some of the top search terms for your product. From that point, you'll begin getting organic sales, which you didn't have to spend money on to get. That's our goal here. Now, the other main strategy that we recommend for getting initial sales is using PPC. Now, this is a big topic and something that we recommend always running, not just at the product launch. So I'll cover this separately in a little bit. Now, there are some other options as well to help you get initial sales that I'll briefly mention, but that aren't typically as successful as the two that I just mentioned. Number one, ask family or friends to purchase your product. Number two, create a Facebook and/or Instagram page for your product, then ask family and friends to share these pages. Three, ask social media influencers to promote your product. Typically, the way this works is that you pay an influencer to showcase your product to their audience. 4 is to find Facebook groups that might be interested in your product. And 5, drive paid traffic to your product using Google, Facebook, or Instagram ads. So that covers how you can get some initial sales velocity, and this will over time also feed into your sales history. Now let's talk about conversion rate and one important factor that affects this, and that is price. How should you be pricing your product when you first launch? Well, one thing you can do when you first launch is to see what your competitors are charging. Check out the price of the top non-sponsored listings and then make your offer competitive so that people are more likely to choose your product. For example, if the top products are listed for $22 to $25, then consider pricing your product at perhaps $19 to $21. Something to watch here though is to not price so low that you begin to lose money. At this point, you should have figured out what you want your main price point to be, using your competitors as a reference and pricing accordingly depending on how you think your product stacks up against theirs. Maybe you've got an improved or a premium product that you think you can sell for a little bit more, or maybe you've got a good product that is comparable but is priced slightly less. Whatever your target price is, keep in mind that it is okay to price a little bit lower during this launch period. In the first few weeks, you're really not worried about making a huge profit, just that you're improving your keyword ranking, just so long as you aren't losing too much money in the process. I wouldn't price so low though that your competitors end up lowering their prices also, and you create what's called a race to the bottom where no one makes any money. But by offering a slight decrease in price, you should see an increase in your initial sales until you reach your goal of getting a good keyword ranking. You can use the Jungle Scout profit calculator to help you with your pricing. In the extension, click on the net column, enter in your total product price, including shipping and anything else per unit, and then adjust the price until you find your break-even number or where you're just making a small profit. An alternative to lowering your price is offering a discount inside of Amazon. You can find this option inside of Seller Central under coupons. Now this is a little bit different to using a deals website, as this adjusted price will actually be shown on your Amazon listing. This is a great way to get customers' attention on your listing, as these coupon codes appear in bright green on the search results page and are great for drawing the eye to them. The question many wonder at this stage is it better to just lower your price or keep a higher price and then offer a coupon? We've seen varying results, so it can be a good idea to try out both and see what works best for you. Another common question is, how long should people use this lower price? The best thing to do here is to monitor your sales on a day-to-day basis. Once you're getting the organic sales, not through coupons or PPC, that meet your expectations, you can start to inch up the price. Typically, once you're getting around 10 to 15 organic sales a day, you can start doing this. Another factor that we mentioned that will affect your conversion rate is reviews. So how do you get reviews? Well, without doing anything to bump up the number of reviews that you're getting, the average rate of review is around about 1%. By doing what you can to improve your rate of review, you can usually get this up to about 4%. So here are 4 tips for getting some reviews. The first is request a review. This is a feature inside of Amazon's order detail screen, and this is our top tip for getting reviews. You can ask Amazon to send your customers a review request email for any purchase within the last 30 days. While customers often opt out of receiving emails from sellers, this is one that they don't usually opt out of. Amazon will send an email on their end asking people to leave a review. 𝐙𝐚𝐲𝐧𝐢𝐝𝐻 has a built-in button that you can use that will automatically send this out to each eligible order. Inside of Seller Central, under Manage Orders, you'll see this orange Request Review button if you have the extension set up. 𝐙𝐚𝐲𝐧𝐢𝐝𝐻 knows which orders are eligible for this email and which ones aren't. This feature comes with the Extension Pro. To set it up, click the 𝐙𝐚𝐲𝐧𝐢𝐝𝐻 button when you're on the Manage Orders screen, give it permission, and you're ready to go. It will show you which ones it's already sent a review for and which ones may have been ineligible. You can still use this feature without 𝐙𝐚𝐲𝐽𝐝, but it just means that you have to go in and click on each one manually. The next tip is using email campaigns. Now this used to be a more popular method, however Amazon has gotten much stricter on what it allows in terms of buyer-seller messaging. Here are some of Amazon's terms of service that you should definitely abide by. Only send 1 email per customer per order. Do not try and filter happy or unhappy customers in any way. Do not include any attachments, any links. Do not offer any promotions. Do not ask anyone to update their reviews. We recommend saying the following in your email. Thank them for their purchase and ask them to leave a review by selecting their account, going to their order, and going to product reviews. As I mentioned, this is definitely becoming less and less effective as people opt out of emails, but they do still work, and so it's still worth using these in your launch strategy. Next up is the early reviewer program. Now, once someone purchases your product, Amazon will reach out to them and offer a gift card if they leave a review. Remember that only Amazon can offer incentives for reviews, not you. To enroll in this program, you must be brand registered and have less than 5 reviews on that particular listing. The program continues to run until you have received 5 reviews through the program or after 1 year. It costs $60 to enroll. Something to note is that these reviews are often short and not very detailed. However, it's still a great option to get those initial reviews. Once you've gotten a handful of detailed reviews, you also just want the overall number of reviews to go up, with a great star rating, of course. So having some less detailed reviews in the mix is not so important once those numbers start to get up. Number 4 is the Vine program. This has been available for a number of years on Amazon, but they recently made it available for third-party sellers. You must be brand registered for this program as well. If you are, you'll see it under Advertising, Vine. You give out products to pre-vetted Vine reviewers who are people that Amazon thinks leave great reviews. They can request your product, and once they receive it, they leave a review, which is usually quite thorough. It doesn't cost you anything other than just giving away your product for free. So this is definitely a great strategy. Compared to something like a deals website or even organic sales, the rate of review on the Vine program is incredibly high, so this is definitely worth incorporating into your launch strategy. Something to keep in mind regarding getting reviews, always follow Amazon's rules. You will get caught if you break their TOS, so it's not worth breaking the rules. I mentioned PPC briefly, so now it's time to dive in. Now, advertising on Amazon is very powerful and important to your success. There's a lot to cover on this topic, so I'm just gonna give you the basics in this video, as I know we've covered a ton already. But when you're ready to learn more, we have an entire in-depth masterclass on this topic. So PPC stands for pay-per-click, which is a model of internet marketing where you pay for clicks to your product. As I mentioned for the product launch, PPC will help you get additional sales, and it's great for helping you rank on particular keywords because you can target those specific keywords, and then all the sales that you get on that keyword will improve your ranking for it. Now, there are 3 types of PPC campaigns on Amazon, but in this video, I'm just gonna focus on the most common one and what we've found to be the most effective, and that is sponsored product ads. These are the ads that appear at the top and the bottom of the search results page, as well as in the product carousel on the product detail page. They appear on Amazon, on desktop, mobile, and the app. As with all types of PPC, you're charged every time someone clicks on your ad, not when your ad is displayed. I'll show you exactly how to set this up in a little bit, but before we go any further, a quick reminder about keywords. PPC ads are based on either the keywords that Amazon thinks are relevant or keyword lists that you have come up with. So before you run these campaigns, make sure you've done proper keyword research. Now let's dig in a little further. There are 2 types of campaigns, automatic and manual. Automatic campaigns are the easiest to set up and therefore a great place to start. In this campaign type, you're allowing Amazon to decide which keywords to display your ad for. They choose the keywords based off of your listing's title, bullet points, description, and backend keywords, which is why it's important to have done your keyword research and optimized your listing at this point. Manual campaigns take a little bit more work to set up because in this campaign type, you select the keywords to target. However, this of course gives you more control over your advertising and the ability to fine tune these campaigns. For this, you'll use the keyword list you've made in Keyword Scout. Let me now show you how to set up an automatic campaign, which is a great place to start with your Amazon advertising if you're a beginner. To begin the process from Seller Central, click on Advertising, Campaign Manager. Next, click on Create Campaign. Start by giving your campaign a name. For now, we'll just call this Automatic Targeting. Under Portfolio, select your product or create a new portfolio and name it with your product. Here you can set an end date if you want, but I typically leave these running. Next, you'll set your daily budget. If you have the money, I'd recommend about $50. Otherwise, start at $20 or $30 per day, but keep in mind that your budget may not last the entire day. Here, select Automatic Targeting. Next is where you pick your campaign bidding strategy. For automatic campaigns, I'd recommend dynamic bids up and down. A fixed bid refers to the maximum amount that you're willing to pay for a bid. A dynamic bid up and down means that Amazon will adjust your bid higher if they think you have a good chance of getting a conversion, or they'll adjust it down if they think you have a poor chance of getting that conversion. Dynamic down bids only means that they'll only adjust it down and not up. Now create an ad group. For now, let's just call this automatic. Here you'll select the product that you want to advertise. Now select your default bid. Remember, this is the maximum amount you'd be willing to bid, not necessarily the entire amount that you will spend. You can utilize Amazon's suggested bid, and I'd recommend if you have the budget to go with the higher end of this range. The last section here is to set up negative keyword targeting. This is an optional step where you pick any keywords that you don't want to show for. For example, if you're advertising drinking glasses, you might want to make sure that you don't show up for eyeglasses. Otherwise, you can just leave this section blank. Click Launch Campaign and you're all set. Now, creating a manual campaign is a very similar process. However, you instead enter in your own keywords, and this is what I'd recommend you copy over from Keyword Scout. I'm not going to cover the entirety of a manual campaign in this video. However, if you want to learn more about everything to do with those types of campaigns and the whole process, then check out our complete guide to PPC. The link is in the YouTube cards and description also. So there you have it. That covers the steps of finding a product all the way to launching it on Amazon. I hope this video has given you a solid understanding of what it takes from A to Z. Now, I've packed as much information as I could into this one video, but of course, there's always going to be a lot more small details to cover. If you're interested in taking it another step further and you benefit from having more personal guidance through the process, I'd encourage you to check out our full course on the topic called Freedom Builder Bootcamp. Keep in mind, this video is 1 hour of training, whereas the full course is over 20 hours long, going in depth, step by step into the topics that I covered today and led by 8-figure Amazon seller and CEO of Jungle Scout, Greg Mercer. So if that is something that you feel would help you out, then go to freedombuilderbootcamp.com to learn more. But my hope is that this video has given you enough direction to at least get started. Remember to bookmark this video and then visit the description below for detailed timestamps of each section so that you can easily come back to this as a resource. Now over to you guys. What questions do you have? Leave them in the comment section below and I'll do my very best to answer as many of them as I can. Also, if you've gotten a lot of value from this video, which I hope you did, could you please hit the thumbs up below? Our team has put a lot of work into creating what we hope is a valuable resource, so that would mean a lot. Also consider subscribing if you'd like more high quality content like this on how to sell on Amazon. You can even hit the little bell icon as well so you get notified whenever we post a new video or go live, which we do regularly. Thank you so much for watching. All the very best with your Amazon journey, and I'll see you in the next video.